federal balance due was, my California state balance due was, my Washington state balance was. So in total, I paid. What's up guys, it's Ivan. I'm a third year doctoral student at the University of California, San Diego, where I study college access and equity. And in this video, I wanted to share with you how much taxes I paid during my second year as a PhD student. Before I get into the numbers, I do want to caution you that I am not a tax professional. All I'm doing here is sharing my experiences, so please go consult with a tax professional when you are in grad school. So for some background, I'm a full-time PhD student, and the taxes I'm going to talk about today are from the 2021 year. That means from January to December of 2021. The academic year usually for most institutions start in either August or September, and then they run all the way to May or June, depending on if you're a semester or quarter system school. So obviously your taxes are not going to be for your academic year, they're going to be for the calendar year. So that's one thing I want to make sure that you are aware of. Something else that you need to be aware of is if you are an international student that's going into graduate school in the United States, you still have to pay taxes. And even though you aren't a US citizen, you can attain a ITIN number, which is an identification tax number that's given to people that are working here in the United States. In my case, I'm a US citizen, so I have a social security number that I have to attach to my tax documents. I'm gonna try my best to kind of explain my situation here, but honestly, I'm gonna have to redact a lot of information. For this 2021 year, I prepared my taxes as a single man. Let's talk about wages. So my wages actually consisted of two different companies, I guess. So one of them was UCSD because they paid for me being a TA. That included my stipend. That included also me being a graduate researcher, in addition to the tuition remission that I received, as well as the fees that my program paid for because of me being a part-time employee of the institution. And so that means that with UCSD, I have to pay California taxes as well as federal taxes. My second income stream is going to be from my previous work employer, which was in the state of Washington, which in Washington state, they don't have state tax, which is great, right? But I still have to pay federal taxes from the money that I made in Washington. So for my UC San Diego employment, the wages in total for that year from January to December 2021 were $16,243. For my previous employment while I was working in Washington, that total came out to be $8,833. So my total wages for 2021 were $25,076. Now let's talk about education expenses. So on my tax documents, they broke it down into two parts. So part one consisted of payments received for tuition and other expenses, and that came out to be $18,387.39. And this meant the tuition remission and the tuition remission fees that the program paid for. So this is how much tuition and fees I paid, or rather the institution paid for me to be able to be a PhD student in the education program. The second part of these educational expenses was the scholarships or grants that I received, and this included fellowships, stipends, tuition remissions, etc. And that came out to be $38,599. So the way the government calculates this tuition and fees, when they're trying to figure out your taxable income, what they do is they subtract your scholarships and grants from the payments received for tuition and other expenses. So in my case, they subtracted my part 2 from part 1, and the tuition and fee total came out to be $20,212. So now that we know what our wages were from what we made from our work, and then we also know what the education expenses are, now we have to add those together, or at least the government does that. So whatever the difference was for your education expenses were, you add that as your wages, so money that you made. So for me, wages plus educational expenses equaled $45,288. And so this is wages, salaries, tips, etc. So the federal government in the United States, even though you received fellowships and grants and all this free money, right, you still have to report it as taxable income. And honestly, I was confused about this when I was doing my taxes, because I thought it was free money, right? It should be untaxed, but apparently it's not. And honestly, I don't really know why. So that's that's why it's important for you to seek out this professional support and help, because they can explain more to you why this happens. I didn't ask when I was doing my taxes because the people that I was working with were just tax professionals. Maybe next year when I do them again with a tax professional, I might ask them, but I think the route to go is to ask the financial aid office at your graduate institution. All right, so here's more information that I pulled from my tax documents, but honestly, I don't really know what that means, but I ended up getting a, I guess, deductible or deduction somehow of $12,550 for something. I'm not exactly sure why, but I remember when I went into the tax preparer's office, they asked me if I had any educational expenses outside of the tuition and fees and all that stuff and the room and board, and so I said that I bought a laptop and a couple of other expenses that I reported, so apparently that helped me out a little bit. So in total, my taxable income came out to be $32,738. All right, so now for the juicy part, the reason why you clicked on this video. Now I'm gonna share how much money I paid the federal and state governments. So my federal balance due was $1,355. My California state balance due was $163. My Washington state balance was $0. And then I had to pay the tax preparer $215. So in total, I paid $1,733 in state and federal taxes. My final thoughts on this is that that's a lot of money, almost $2,000 that I had to pay when I'm not even getting paid that much money as a graduate student. As a graduate student, I only receive roughly around $21,000 for 9 months. That does not include the summer salaries. So what I would say and advice that I would give you as a graduate student is save up money throughout the year. That way you have enough money at the end to pay for your taxes. Luckily, I had savings that I can use from my previous employment before graduate school, and I paid this total off right away. You can do month-to-month payments, but there's an interest fee that's tied to that. You pay more than the initial cost. All right, guys, so that concludes my video on how much taxes I paid as a second-year PhD student. Hopefully, this information gives you a better idea of how much taxes you might have to pay as a graduate student, but I want to warn you again, I am not a tax professional. Seek out that support from the financial aid office at your institution, but also from an actual tax professional. They might give you some greater insight on how to better prepare to pay for taxes as a graduate student. Hopefully this information helped you out. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video.